Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cinema Savvy. It's myself, George, and today I'm joined by Tayte as we kickstart our coverage for the 2021 BFI London Film Festival with the opening night film, The Harder They Fall, starring Idris Elba, Jonathan Majors, and many other talented actors. But firstly, as I said, we're at the festival. Tayte, how are we? You had a couple of very early mornings compared to me.
I'm recovering. I'm recovering. Yesterday was a day fueled by coffee. I can only say, waking up at 4:30 to get the train into London for 5:30 train, just to be able to see one film in the day, which is the amount of commitment which I'm giving to this festival. So there you go.
It's I mean, I'm lucky that this year, for those that aren't in the know, obviously the London Film Festival, it's not just in London anymore. They have sort of 12 simultaneous screenings for the opening night galas, and for some reason they're somewhere 20 minutes from mine showing it, which was a lovely, lovely sight to behold. So I saw The Harder They Fall last night at the time of recording. You were about 12 hours ahead of me, so I'm not saying I've had to avoid spoilers. It's not James Bond. It's not anything else like that. But it's been very weird because when it finished, you were basically asleep. Vice versa, when you woke up for Spencer this morning, I was asleep and I'm watching it
Yeah.
later tonight. So yeah, it's a weird way of catching up, meeting in the middle. But as we said, this is the first video from this festival. I'm going to hand over to Tayte with some of the socials about where you can find us and our other videos.
Yeah, sure. So the festival is actually running from Wednesday through to Sunday 17th. There are loads of films that we're going to try and cover. Obviously, we can't cover all of the films from the festival and stuff like that, but we're going to try and get out there at least some of the major ones, some of the big ones, which we're really looking forward to. So that is kind of the span for the festival. If you have seen The Harder They Fall, the film we're going to be talking about today, then please comment along. Don't forget to just like, comment, share, and subscribe. Obviously, we're going to be putting out loads of content for this festival and loads more content across all the other things. If you want to find out where our videos are going to be coming up, go and look at us on Facebook. That is Cinema Savvy. Twitter, Cinema_Savvy. Letterboxd will have all the films from the festival on there as well. And TeePublic in the description, where you can get a very cozy hoodie, which has genuinely been the only thing that's got me through these early mornings over the last day or so.
Definitely. So do check us out on there. It's going to be an exciting one. And I want to kind of add to this as well. Any other videos, there may be other people coming on. And by the time this video goes up, our Dune spoiler-free review will be out. So go ahead and check that out. If you're American, you've just had Bond. We've also got a spoiler discussion, which is 4 hours long. I think the longest review on the channel to date that isn't a watch along or the Oscars. But that was a deep dissection that was needed. We'll just leave that there. We're not going to say anything. And coming up tomorrow, the second film we're covering is, of course, Spencer, starring Kristen Stewart. So that's going to be a very exciting one. I've seen a couple of people at that stage. But as we said, we're starting with The Harder They Fall. And sort of heading into this one, I want to ask you, did you know anything about this? Because I was sort of as left out in the dark. I didn't know anything except the fact it was a Western.
So I saw the trailer for this, and from the trailer, it kind of looked like a very, very modern take on a Western, without actually setting it in modern day standards. So it's set back in the day, back when the Wild West was around and stuff like that. And all that I kind of got from it was Tarantino vibes straight from the trailer. That was the first thing that I got, and I was like, okay, it's going to be a Tarantino-esque styled film in the same kind of light as Django Unchained. But it's got a different director. It's got a fantastic cast. And I just thought, okay, I'm excited for it. It's going to be incredibly violent. It's going to be very, very vibrant and stuff like that. Hopefully, it'll tell a very good story to go along with it, and we'll get to see some great acting. So that's kind of what I was expecting going into it. Outside of the trailer, though, I didn't really know much about it other than the fact that it was the kind of headline opening gala and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I'm just going to quickly read out the plot synopsis because I'd never actually searched any of it, hadn't seen the trailer. The only coverage I'd seen, it was opening the festival and some of the cast. So we have gunning for revenge, outlaw Nat Love saddles up with his gang to take down enemy Rufus Buck, a ruthless crime boss who just got sprung from prison. Netflix synopsis much better than the modern day IMDb ones. I must add that. But sort of starting off with Jeymes Samuel, the director, this is his directorial debut. I had never heard of him. Again, I knew next to nothing. Sean Carter, the producer, I embarrassingly didn't know it was actually Jay-Z until I saw an interview from the red carpet. So that says, again, about my music knowledge for those that really don't believe me how bad it is. And this is what was kind of really interesting for me. So the screening I went to, obviously, we know the press screens, you go in, beautifully, no adverts, the film just starts. Whereas the one I was at yesterday, it played highlights of the red carpet, which really annoyed me. And I appreciate, that they're covering a festival for everyone, but they were showing clips from the
Mm,
film. They were talking about scenes from it, and I was just, I really wanted to watch it. So I'm not going to complain too much about that. But they were selling it really well, and there was suddenly this intrigue that it wasn't just a western. That some of the people were based off real life individuals, and they were talking really positively about it. The action, the cast, and it was quite exciting actually getting the build up because there's so many different people attending. And it was also the world premiere, they kept saying as well, which is
yeah.
kind of cool. We got that at a festival as well. I think Beyonce went as well, but just skipped the red carpet. And it's one of those where every time the director spoke, I was kind of quite sort of interested. Like, have I seen him before? Like, he's so energetic. He's got so much fun. And he spoke about directing music, and I checked, and I think he's done music videos in the past. And I think he's also a musician, which again I would
Mm,
definitely not have known. And sort of jumping in the direction itself straight away. Me and you both spoke before we hit record about Tarantino, that this feels like a Tarantino film and
mm,
not an impersonation of a Tarantino film, which I mean, I don't know if you ever spoke about Bad Times, the RL, but everyone was like, that's a Tarantino film. But
yeah.
I always thought that that wanted to be a Tarantino film, where this is a film that uh, Jeymes Samuel has directed, which is, I mean, again, I've not seen music videos. This feels like this is the introduction to a director that's going to get to do a lot of films. And even the way Spike Lee does like a Spike Lee joint, this had a Jeymes Samuel film right at the start, putting his stamp on it. And I thought the direction for a directorial debut for an action for a Western was solid. And I think that's a really
Mm,
way to say that there was character drama, that I believe the characters, I was sort of on the journey with them, and you were sort of wanting some to do well, some not to do well the way you want the direction. But it felt like a really solid film. The runtime flew, the directing beats were there, and a lot of directors have started off in their careers with TV or with music videos and even adverts back in the day. And this feels like one where the music video, I wouldn't say is a bad thing. The directing style feels
mm.
like a music video at times, and it's so well directed, edited, with the cinematography that every frame almost has a purpose. And I think that's what made it feel so fresh, was that there was so much going on. And I think the root of that is him as a director.
Yeah, and I know we're going to speak about music a little bit later, but music had to have been such a massive influence on this film, especially because this film has a lot of music that runs throughout the entire thing. It does feel like it's shot almost like a music video in some parts, very stylistic, very, very like nice open wide shots and stuff like that. Some of the gunplays, not quite like Baby Driver kind of levels of in time with the music, but you could easily imagine them syncing together and the action being set to the music and stuff like that. It is really solid direction. I don't think there's anything else you could say apart from that.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like an imitation of a Tarantino film at all. And I was speaking to some people afterwards, and we all agreed upon this film feels like the violence in it is justified, whereas sometimes in a Tarantino film, the violence is there for the sake of violence. It's not there to kind of push on the plot. It's not there. It's there to shock you, if anything. Whereas with this film, it felt like it was completely justified, and you're set in that universe from the very off, and it doesn't like change tempo or change pace. It just steamrolls its way through the entire film. And runtime was 2 hours 10. It genuinely felt like an hour and a half film. It really flew by, and that just comes down to the kind of the pacing and I guess the direction as well, because it's so kind of quick and fast paced stuff like that. The plot beats move on so quickly, and it's not exactly a hard to follow plot as well. It's a very very simple premise. Person wants revenge, and just the journey that you go on with the characters and everything that because of that it all comes down to the writing. It all comes down to the direction. I know the other writer. I want to get this right. Boaz Yakin also wrote Remember the Titans. He also did various other films as well, which kind of helps. So you've got someone on board who has done kind of films before and film writing and stuff like that. So the combination of the two of them, the direction of Jeymes Samuel, just made for an absolutely fantastic film and a very, very good opening to the festival. I want to add as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we kind of spoke this as well, that with film festivals, so many of them are these deep dramas, whether they touch upon
Mm,
race, fictional events, real events, all that kind of stuff, that a lot of them are very hard hitting, very early in the morning, can take you on a journey or make you depressed, anything like that. All form of, and it's normally quality film, but to get sort of pumped for the festival, you want the kind of film that's going to G you up into the mood for all that. And as far as an opening film goes, I don't think they could have picked a better one. That we know the festival's going to close with Macbeth. Had this been the other way around, it'd be a very odd juxtaposition. But the fact this opened with such a stylish, fun adventure, and I think a really big thing is so many of this cast are British as well. Obviously, the director's from London. He said when he was young, he always goes to the festival, which is you wouldn't, not saying you wouldn't think it, but because he's so close with Jay-Z working in music, you would have thought that he wasn't English in absolute truth. But one thing I guess that sort of transcends the film is that, you know, the direction is absolutely there, but if you don't know the cast that can sort of follow that direction and run with it. And let's talk Jonathan Majors first, because I think he is by a country mile one of the most interesting young actors sort of breaking through. I've not seen I believe is it Last Black Man in San Francisco that came out a couple of years ago. That was
He's
the
meant to be very
big
good
breakthrough. Yeah, and I've seen some people talking about the first thing I saw him in was, I think we both reviewed, didn't we? The Five Bloods last year. Also starring Delroy Lindo, that's just made me think in my head there. And he's a very interesting actor. And obviously a lot of, I guess, other people will know him, obviously, as his intro in Loki, as he played, you know, He Who Remains, aka a variant of Kang the Conqueror. Not really the spoiler anymore, but he has a very interesting career path. And in this film, I don't know what it is about him. He feels very enigmatic as an actor, but there's enough of an enigma for you to want to be drawn into him, and you really enjoy him on screen. That there's never too much of him as a leading man, but every time you kind of see him, you're with him. And I think there's a sort of nuance in his performance that I can't quite sort of put my finger on, but I thought he was fantastic.
Yeah, just the presentation of the character to start off with, because they do say at the start of the film, all of these people were real. The stories kind of fiction, are made up and stuff like that, but the people were real. So whenever we talk about the characters, they're kind of not, they're loosely based off real people. They've either taken the name or they've put them all in the same setting, and they've given them kind of this story to base around it. And with the character of Nat Love, played by Jonathan Majors, distinct style that he has, and the presentation of his character from the very, very start, he's very clear to recognize, and it's something that you always want from a Western hero, something that you can immediately point to and go, yep, that's the hero, and stuff like that. Whether it's Clint Eastwood with the kind of the hat being pulled slowly up and stuff like that. With Nat Love, it's the cross on the forehead that's been cut into his forehead from when he was a child, which immediately draws you to him and immediately gives you kind of, oh, what's he getting revenge from? Oh, he's getting revenge for the person who kind of put that in his forehead and did kind of horrible things and stuff like that. It's great because you immediately gravitate to that role and stuff like that. And throughout the entire film, we do follow him and the people that he meets and the people on the opposite end of the spectrum that Idris Elba meets in his role. And it all comes together towards the end with a massive standoff, as you would expect in a Western. But the fact that we had this journey with Jonathan Majors, who is, I'm sure, going to be one of the biggest actors in the world in the next few years because of the various different things he's doing with Marvel, but also with performances like this, with performances like in Last Black Man in San Francisco, he's just going to absolutely skyrocket his way up the ladder, and we're going to see a lot more of him in a lot more films.
Yeah, definitely. And I think everyone he sort of spoke with, he had charisma too on screen. That obviously the big one's Idris Elba, who played the character of Rufus Buck, and you know, I don't think it's possible to dislike Idris Elba in anything he's ever. He's always had a presence, and obviously, not to bring up Bond again, we do know in a parallel world he would have played him. Maybe not in the future, because I do think age-wise that's a discussion for another time. 24th October on the channel. But he's just perfectly cast in everything. I feel that you know what you're going to get with him. I'm not saying he's ever been typecast either now, but I think you want an outlaw film, you want Idris Elba to be the villain, you can 100% go and do it because he can be fearsome. We know he can handle action. We know he can handle drama. And I think you know with him what you're going to get from him. You're going to get a solid performance. It's everything. And I think he's got really good chemistry with those he appears against, that he's kind of the quieter one, the one that's watching. And they essentially make out and reiterate that his character is essentially the devil. And I never feel he's as villainous as that, which I know is something they want to kind of echo within the film itself. But it's who his character and he's surrounded with the actors as well, that I think, we know this is an ensemble piece, and I think with the two gangs, you've got Nat Love's gang, Jonathan Majors, and you've got Rufus Bucks, which is Idris Elba's. I think the Buck gang is far more interesting, which is where we get
Mm.
Regina King, we get Lakeith Stanfield, who I think both of those two are the best of the supporting characters in the entire film. And there's no hiding from that. And I think those around Idris Elba makes it more interesting. There's so many people say, I think even the director did it, it's so much not more fun to write a villain, but when you have a villain, everyone loves to get sort of delving into those characters and what their beliefs are, what draws them, and what they want to do with that character. And I think they just deliver that so much. But as far as old school westerns go, I've not seen many of the classic ones. It's a genre that it's not that I'm not familiar with it. I just haven't seen enough. And I know right away off this, going back to the direction and with the performances, that there wouldn't have been a western like this before. This is as modern as they could probably come.
No, it's fantastic, and like you were saying with the supporting cast and stuff like that, you do have the two gangs, and you do have kind of the composition of them, stuff like that. But I will say, the kind of the Nat Love gang's okay. It kind of there are characters in there which you can kind of get behind. I want to pull up RJ Siler's character what was his name? His name was Jim Beckworth, because he was quite a fun character. Kind of just a cocky gunslinger and stuff like that. But you also get like characters like Delroy Lindo, who kind of brings in as the sheriff and is kind of the support in there. You've got Zazie Beetz, and she's got her own role in there. And I mean, there's not a single bad performance in this film.
Yeah.
But honestly, if we're looking at the better performances, I will say it comes from the kind of the big trio. I think Lakeith Stanfield absolutely steals the show in a lot of the scenes he's in, which is really difficult to do with the people who he's got on screen and stuff like that. But he was absolutely fantastic. Regina King keeps on just doing amazing performances in everything that she does. I still absolutely kind of adore her performance in Watchmen, and even I liked her film from last year, One Night in Miami, or wherever it's called. But yeah, I just think the entire cast had such a fun time, and you can see that on set and stuff like that, and you can see kind of the chemistry between them. Idris Elba as well, just on top of that. Absolutely fantastic performance. It's so difficult kind of to talk about this film without really kind of revealing what the characters end up doing and stuff like that, obviously, because we've got to give people the opportunity to watch it. And I believe it's out on Netflix.
November the 3rd, they said.
November 3rd. I think it's going to do quite well, but
I think this is what we kind of, I don't know if we spoke about this, but it's coming out in cinemas October the 22nd, which is very rare with Netflix these days to get at least a week in cinemas. And one of the things I've kind of drawn from it right away is that I don't think this is the kind of Netflix film that they're going to hype up for 2 days on Twitter and then it's just going to come out and they'll move on to the next one. I think this is going to be one that they are speaking about for a long time, and this is going to be very, very popular with audiences. And again, without sort of getting into the whole Netflix model, there is so much absolute crap on that service now. And when you get the quality stuff, it is unbelievably good. But for every great show, there's probably about 10 awful ones and maybe even 15 ones you've never heard of that are even worse. So they care about is quantity. But with a film like this, they've shown that they can invest in the correct people, and by giving it that big premiere at a festival, at cinema releases, they are showing a faith that they don't to so many others. And I think where this one is that I'm not going to talk about sequels and spin-offs, but to me, this is a career launcher for Jeymes Samuel. And that's a really random thing to say, but I could look at this film and think this guy could direct 7 or 8, and I'm going to be so excited for whatever he does next, because it doesn't feel like it's a studio sort of crank this out, make this. I feel there's a project. I know that obviously Jay-Z is the producer, and no one can. I mean, I'm not familiar with music, but I can tell you that I know his business side of things and how successful it's been. That I'd imagine he's invested a lot into this film as well, being a producer, and I thought that was such an exciting point to take away from it as well. But everything comes down to I think the cast are there, and I'm the weakest thing I would probably say, and it's not even bad, but the writing. There's a couple of characters where I'm not engrossed in their character arc. But I think when you've got an ensemble that's juggling so much and you're getting so many great character arcs from others, it is hard to find that balance between all of them. But I just think it was so well directed, and jumping in with that, which we haven't really spoken about, the action as well. You kind of mentioned that they saved the big Western moment for the standoff, and the action scenes in the film, they're so well built up. You're not just getting pointless shooting scene after shooting scene. So when you get to the finale, you've seen everything. There are there are moments in the film that have been built up over 2 hours, and they've got such a fantastic payoff that it makes it so exciting to see these gangs come together. And I think that that's actually very rare compared to so many other films that would do the opposite.
It's not just kind of action's a very broad term here, because when we talk about the action, there are moments of kind of very brief violence where it's just like,
Yeah,
oh, one person's just going to get shot. And it's just so well kind of framed and done and stuff like that. And there are various different things. Just to kind of say that the title comes up not at the very, very start of the film, it comes up after kind of a short introduction. And just the framing of the violence when they're kind of displaying the title and stuff like that is so well done and so well shot and stuff like that. It's so thought out, and it's not something you'd just expect from a first-time director who's only ever done music videos. So obviously a massive career ahead here for Jeymes Samuel. But yeah, not only just on top of that, but just the music as well. And we already talked about music a little bit. It was so clear there was massive influences here with music. Because
yeah,
there is a lot of modern kind of rap music and stuff like that playing in the background. You do get sometimes the old Western kind of score coming through as well. And it's kind of a mixture of the blend between the two. So it does feel like kind of a modern Western. I think, I mean, I've been describing it, and so did Jeymes Samuel, described it as like a black Western. It's a Western tailored for kind of modern black audiences, but everyone can watch it. And it is just absolutely fantastically framed. And I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of that musical genre, but it fits so well with this film. You couldn't have imagined the film being done any differently in the way that it was done. The only negative I can really give, and this may have been just come from where I was watching it, because for the first time they're doing it in the Royal Festival Hall, which they hadn't done previously. Previously with the London Film Festival, they've had their premieres either at the View Cinema in Leicester Square, or they've had them at the Embankment
the
Cinema that
Odeon.
they usually set up, the or the Odeon even. And this year at the festival, they decided they do the opening and closing galas at the Royal Festival Hall. Um, it's a big kind of concert hall. It was quite empty in there because obviously they didn't have many people going in there for press. They only filled up basically the first tier. Um, it echoed quite a lot, and a lot of the dialogue, especially with the music and especially with the kind of loud gunshots, was quite difficult to hear. Now, I don't know if that was obviously you'll be able to tell me or not. I'm sure that'd be a problem that'd be fine on Netflix and it'd be fine in other cinemas. It's just that with this cinema, because it was so large and wasn't completely
Mm.
packed out and stuff like that, it did end up echoing. So maybe that's something for the festival to kind of think of in the future and stuff like that with their screening, especially because they got Macbeth happening in there as the closing of the festival as well.
Yeah, I so the cinema I was in, it's at the Warwick Arts Centre. It just been refurbed. It was really nice, comfy, but there's only about 30, 40 seats, about 6 rows. And it sounded great from where I was. And I'm the same. I think I've been to the festival once before for like an Auntie Daniels talk. And I
Yeah.
can't I mean, I know there is a screen there, but it's like the Olympic Stadium. It's like you're going backwards on a slope more so than
Mm.
a stacked crowd. And it is, I'm gonna say it just feels a bit odd it's gonna get shown there. And I think me and you spoke before, part of me thinks it may be because obviously right now Bond is the big thing and that's booked up everywhere. Maybe that was
Yeah.
involved with the festival. I
But
don't know, but
also, I'm
I'm
surprised the festival this year because they don't have the Embankment Cinema, which is the big cinema
that's
they
what
put out in
surprised me.
previous years,
And
and that just
that's a
isn't
massive
there.
shame. Yeah,
Mm.
because it's such an iconic moment. I'm wondering if maybe not audience numbers are down, but I wonder if they're trying new things or if maybe they couldn't get the permission to do it. But the Embankment Cinema is just lovely. It's a lovely pop up. It doesn't look like it's a pop up either.
Mm.
It's just so well placed there, and it's so close to Leicester Square. Whereas obviously the festival you got to go across South Bank as well, which
Yeah,
adds to the journey. So
I mean,
I'm very curious to see.
I can understand why they're doing it at the Royal Festival Hall purely out of the fact that it's right next to the BFI Centre. But
Also that, yeah,
at that point, why don't you just do it in the BFI Centre? Like,
I know.
it's an unusual choice there. Um,
Yeah, and it's one of them where it might just be for 1 year or they're testing it down the line. But I
mm,
what I will say, the premiere did look nice. Like they built like a fake, not town, but they had giant like they were like saloons and type things that
yeah,
they'd done all the red carpets. So that was kind of cool from my end. But yeah, we know that obviously most of the press screens are going to be at the View, so that should be
mm.
well, we hope closer to normality. But I can
At the
see
same
Macbeth
time,
working the
yeah.
concert hall. That's not going to be a
Mm.
loud, echoey, not adventure or action, but
I'm
yeah,
just
that's going to be
yeah.
essentially staged.
But I'd say some of the dialogue was quite difficult to hear, even when the music wasn't going and even when the gunshots weren't going. So that's something that we can look for in the future. But anyway, kind of final thoughts going into the film. I absolutely adored it. It was a really, really good opening film for the festival. Definitely going to be re-watching it again when it gets released. We're going to be recommending it to loads of people. It's a nice kind of fresh kind of Western. And it's a modern Western, and it's got brilliant acting and great action, and it's just so kind of colorful, and so it's a fresh experience because we haven't had a Western like this in a very, very long time. There's only one other film that I can compare it to, which is Django. But the violence, like I said, it feels like it's earned instead of being in a Tarantino film. I can't wait to see what Jeymes Samuel does next after this.
Absolutely. I'm in the same vein. I think this is one of the, I don't even this qualifies as a blockbuster, but this is one of the sort of the funnest blockbusters I would say this year, the traditional blockbuster, rather than that smaller dramatic impulse. This is very much a film that's fun to watch with audiences. There's a lot of laughter at times in our screening. I think, as I said, this can be a big hit at home. So this is Netflix going in the right direction. It feels like a new take on a genre film, and it's something so fresh to the mind that I've not seen anything like it. So I'm very excited to see what comes next. And again, directorial debut with such an incredible cast. I thought that was something I didn't expect. I went into this film thinking, okay, I'm just going to get like a bog standard Western, but I was completely blown away by what we did get. I had so much fun in this, and I'm actually quite looking forward to seeing it again when I get the chance. So, absolutely the great way to kick off the festival. It's left me wanting more, not just from the festival, but from the director and, of course, some of those cast members. And that being said, that's going to kind of tail off the first review of the festival.
Yes.
As we said, we're going to be back tomorrow with our Spencer review. So do stick around for the channel. That video is going to be up, as we said at the start, the Dune spoiler-free video is already up. But we want to know your thoughts on The Harder They Fall. If you're watching this from the future and you've seen it on Netflix, comment below your thoughts. We'll reply to them. We want to see what you're thinking with this one, because I think this is going to be very, very popular. And we don't really talk about sequels, but it's a Western. Could they make more Westerns? That's a conversation I would imagine they're having.
I could honestly, they leave this reasonably open-ended. I reckon this could be. I mean, the Dollars trilogy is the most famous one. They could easily make a trilogy out of these characters.
Yeah.
So
and that's the thing. There's not been a film like it in so long. I think there is so much potential here. So it's exciting to see what they want to do, or if there are other characters, because as we kind of spoke about, these were real life people, and the one thing the director spoke about is that no one's heard of these. And I'm the same about I couldn't told you any of these. And he spoke that, Westerns have been so Americanized by the lack of sort of black actors in the 50s, the 60s, that no one ever assumes that there were black sort of what would you call them? Like, not robbers, that sounds horrible.
Cowboys.
Cowboys, yes, cowboys,
Yeah.
robbers, banks, all the old sort of stuff we've never seen before.
Outlaws,
and I think outlaws, there we go. And that's something I'd like to see more of, because it just felt new and invigorating rather than the usual stuff on repeat. But that is absolutely everything I can say in mind. Tayte, where can people find us for more film festival coverage?
So people can find us on Facebook. People can find us on Twitter. People can find us on Letterboxd as well, where we'll be kind of putting up this one. And if you want to get a t-shirt or a jumper or anything, then go find us on TeePublic. But make sure to stick around for all of the other stuff coming from the festival, which is, of course, going to be running from the 6th till the 17th.
Absolutely. So, everyone, thank you all for watching at home, and we'll be sure to see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.